Storage units are all over the United States and the world at large. And for decades, they've been used to go and store things that people just don't have room for. They're hit or miss in terms of what's all in them. But if you're lucky, you can find something special.
I want 50% of your plunder. 15. 40.
This can be proven because there have been tons of shows about finding storage lockers and getting rare finds as a result. Would you like to know what have all been found in real-life storage lockers? Allow us to reveal 7 luckiest storage unit finds. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. 7. $7.5 million. This is the tale of Dan Dotson, who got a storage unit for $500, and he had found a safe inside it. He had taken the safe to a locksmith, and he was floored when he found $7,500,000 in cash inside it. An attorney came by later, claiming that the original owners were offering a $600,000 reward for the return of the mega payload. He and his wife declined the first offer, but ended up taking a second one of $1,200,000. It's suspected that a random depository of cash that large likely had some sort of cartel or mafia connection, so it probably wasn't a bad idea to get it off their hands. The big question here is why someone would go through the trouble of putting that much money in a storage unit, and then forgetting to pay the rent. The money was right there to pay it off with. 6. The original Superman comic. In April 2011, the first Superman comic ever made in Action Comics, #1, was discovered by a California collectibles expert in a storage unit in San Fernando Valley, according to ABC News. Stephen Fisher said the comic was important and valuable because there is no such thing as a superhero before this comic. Upon finding it, he gave it back to actor Nicolas Cage, who had it stolen from him years prior. Cage's publicist released a statement at the time about the actor's joy of getting his comic back. It is divine providence that the comic was found, and I am hopeful that the heirloom will be returned to my family. Confused, a while after Cage bought the comic, his house was robbed. They took a lot of valuables, and that included the legendary comic. Eventually, it was pawned off by the robbers, and in a rare twist of fate, it made it back to the collector who sold Cage the comic in the first place. However, that's not the only irony in the story, because not long after receiving the comic back, Cage had to sell it for a couple million to pay off the many debts he owed. 5. Pirate Treasure. The show known as Storage Wars had a long and successful run showcasing hundreds of different storage units and their contents. But a couple of incidents have shown that the biggest finds don't always take place in front of the camera. This was the case when a story broke several years ago in which Dan and Laura Dotson, the host of the show, revealed that an ecstatic new storage locker owner who had chosen to remain anonymous had actually outdone Daryl, Wes, Hester, and the whole Storage Wars crew in the find of a lifetime. The pair explained how one lucky customer had picked up a pair of units for less than $2,000, only to discover that one of them literally had a pirate's treasure in it. From gold doubloons to pieces of 8, all 200 years or older. The haul added up to $500,000 in gold coins. The best part? It was in a plain blue Rubbermaid tote. No, really, and it's another mind-boggler that someone would have that amount of rare treasure in a storage unit, and then somehow let the rent lapse. Mysteries of life, well and truly. 4. Michael Jackson Collection. Lauren D. Ruse, a partner in the New York-based consulting firm Ruse Cohen Group and an executive vice president of Extra Space Storage from 1986 to 2003, had no idea that an extra space unit she was managing in Culver City, CA, contained a heady Michael Jackson collection. His personal assistant had made all the arrangements, so when it went into default status, we had to cut the lock to see what was in there, Ruse recalls. Inside was roughly 15 items owned by the King of Pop, including several stage costumes, a couple of large prints, and a trunk with contents. We thought it might have belonged to a memorabilia collector until we tracked it back to his PA through his production company, named on the account, she said. The PA ended up bringing the unit current. They had simply forgotten about it. They ultimately moved the items out. This is especially cool because of the fact that all this really did come from the Michael Jackson via his personal assistant. The value of these items were no doubt sold for a pretty penny, probably to those who've either idolized Jackson or maybe even to his family who wanted some of his memorabilia back. It's hard to say for certain, but we do know now that this wasn't the only storage unit that he had, so it's possible there were some even rarer items in there to be sold. 3. NASA Gear. On an episode of Spike's TV Auction Hunters in 2011, the crew found a NASA countdown clock and a rocket inside a Miami storage unit. The duo of Alan Half and Clinton Jones won the bid on the space items with $1,500. The storage facility happened to be close to Cape Carnival, which could explain why NASA items were placed into a unit. Only in South Florida can you find so much space loot in one room, Half said. After making a purchase, the professional storage unit bidders load whatever they find of value into a truck to be sold later, and donate or trash what remains. This time, a NASA countdown clock and a rocket were what was found behind door number 1. Haff and Jones met with a space memorabilia expert to authenticate the items before reselling them. It was a very cool episode and showcased how sometimes you really don't know what you're gonna get until you open up that door. 2. Guy Ferraris Ride. The $200,000 Lambo Gallardo wouldn't be an easy thing to sell, being one of the most exclusive, distinctive looking vehicles in the world, and the bright yellow paint would make it even more conspicuous. But the story gets weirder when the Martin County Sheriff's Department found the car unharmed in a storage container. While investigating a drive-by, a 17-year-old boy was placed behind bars on a charge and then decided to look in a storage unit belonging to the teen. When police opened up the unit, they found a motorcycle and other items believed to be involved in the incident. That's when the police also noted the 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. After checking out the VIN, they traced the car back to Guy Ferrari. You know, the legendary food guy? Obviously, that's a lot of questions that need to be answered here, including how a 17-year-old somehow stole a car from a famous person like Ferrari. 1. Missing James Bond car. In 1989, a Long Island contractor paid $100 for a storage container. The next day, he and his brother searched the unit. They lifted several blankets and discovered a strange car with fins instead of wheels. The brothers had no idea what they had discovered, so they loaded the car into a truck and left. Excited truckers contacted the brothers over a CB radio and asked if it was the car from the original James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. The brothers had no idea. They had never seen a James Bond movie. The contractor rented the movie when he got home and realized how valuable his discovery was. He had purchased a Lotus Esprit that was used during the movie's underwater scene. He had the car authenticated, restored, and repaired. The contractor decided to put the car in an auction. He discovered that the car had cost over $100,000, the equivalent of almost $500,000 today. To make, he had hoped that he could make a similar amount. The car sold for $997,000. Billionaire Elon Musk won the car, and he hopes to create a working version of it. Now, you might be wondering, how did such a legendary James Bond car get into a storage unit of all things? Well, that's the rub. No one really knows. There were multiple of the car made for The Spy Who Loved Me, and all the cars were accounted for when production was done, and yet one apparently got spirited away, and eventually ended up in the storage unit to be found by the brothers. How? Why? No clue. That's a mystery that likely won't be solved. The real mystery now is whether Elon Musk will honestly get the underwater car to work. If he does, it'll be sold by Tesla soon after, no doubt. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at storage units that have been found to have something truly special within them? Can you believe how rare and valuable these finds were? Do you wish you had that kind of luck when it came to your own storage unit finds? Do you know of other lucky finds by people? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.